Hey everyone, welcome back to the Beyond Extent podcast. And we got a little bit of a special one here because, as always, we have William on the other side.
Hello.
Hey, William. But we also have our first guest episode with Paul Worcester on the other side, too. Hey, Paul.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going good, man. It's going good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's currently working from home, so that's definitely a new experience to me. But it's going all right. It's going good.
Oh, yeah. Well, you want to dive straight into the working from home stuff because it's been a crazy adjustment, right? Like how did that? Oh, wait. Should we just dive into who you are first, right? Like, what is your career been up until this point before we dive into that?
Yeah, let's do that first. That's a pretty good way
Yeah.
to start. Yeah. So obviously, I'm a lead artist at Frontier Developments at the moment, and I've basically started off in the industry as a graduate, like most people have, and then I've kind of worked my way up to a lead position. And it's been 14 years of working, but it's been a really good experience, So I'm just happy to just keep going and then see where all the fat goes in the next few years, really.
Yeah, it must have been an exciting time, right? Like 14 years in the industry. I got to be honest, when we first met, it was like during I think it was during the development of, well, no, it was before the development of Jurassic World. We met before just a couple of times, right? But it was actually during Jurassic World when we started working together. So I never knew that you had so much experience in the industry because you look so young, man.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I've been there in working for a long time. So when I started in the industry, normal maps were the new thing. Bump maps are the old school. It was all normal maps then. So yeah,
Mhm.
I've been around for quite some time, working on lots of different games and stuff like this. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah.
So how did you get started? Like, what was your it's been 14 years ago, but like how did you get started, like making the jump from a student to getting into the industry?
So I've got a really nice story about that. It's quite a long story. So if you guys are up for a 5 minute odd story about how I went from student to an employee, then yeah, let's go for that.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Let's do it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
that's good. Okay, so when I was you know, in sixth form, which is what it is in the UK, I really wanted to do games, and I wanted to do either that games or films, one of the two. I was kind of had my heart set on that. I'd watched loads of films, all this cool CG going on, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's something that I really aspire to do because it just looks so cool. And so I basically thought, well, what's the unis that are good in the UK, and the top one was Bournemouth. So I had my heart set on going to Bournemouth to do animation. When during that time, back in the day, there wasn't really any games courses. It was just animation or computer art courses. Um, so I had my heart set on doing that. So I went up to they had like an open day. So I went up to the open day and I talked to one of the lecturers there and sort of showed him my portfolio that I had at the time. I'd done like multimedia stuff in the past where I had like a sort of CD-ROM and all this stuff. This is CD-ROMs. This is how far it goes back. This is when CD-ROMs were a thing, when you get them on cover discs and in magazines and stuff. So yeah, so I showed him that, and he looked at it and went, "Well, yeah, your portfolio's quite nice. There's some animations there. It could work on TV and things like this." And said, "But he goes, what have you done for like your A levels?" And I said, "Oh, I've done art, design, and media studies. That's what I've done." And he went, So so yeah, you can apply, but you will get rejected. And I was like, I was like, whoa, what? Why? So why would I get a reject for, I've done all these creative courses, it's a creative course and stuff like this. And he said, well, we're looking for more rounded students. And so I was like, oh my God, I can't actually do this course. This is the course I really wanted to do. And I thought for a moment. I said, because I knew that they had a master's course as well, and I thought, well, what can I do while this guy's here? What can I talk to him about? And I said, so if I did a different course and then I came back, say in 3 years' time or 4 years' time, can I do the masters? Because I really wanted to go to Bournemouth and do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, well, yeah, I don't see why not. So that was my goal. I was going to go to a uni and do a course. Didn't really matter what it was, and then I would reapply again to Bournemouth. And so that's what I did. I went to uni. I went to my local uni, did a computer science degree, came out with a first for that, and yeah, it was kind of an art science hybrid course. So it had aspects of coding and aspects of interactive media and things like this. And so after I finished.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that what they mean with like a more rounded student? Like they wanted you to have like a coding background and all that stuff too, instead of just purely focusing on the arts? Or what does that mean in that time?
That's right. So they wanted like someone who had done, say, philosophy or sociology and something like that, as well as art and stuff like this. So I can see their point.
Okay.
They wanted to do more an academic student joining the course, and not purely just creative stuff. But so I guess this was my error really in the past, where I've hadn't looked at what the course wanted. But at that time, I didn't really know what course I wanted to do. I was still young, still looking at other things that I could do. But I knew I did want to do some sort of art thing. I mean, now you've got a lot more experience where you've got unis where they can sort of tell you exactly what, if you study this at school, then you'll probably get on the course or stuff like that. But back then it wasn't really like that. It was more, you find out at the open day or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So yeah, after uni, I finished my course, and then I totally forgot about this stuff, and I thought, I'm going to go traveling for a bit. So that's what I did. So I spent 7 months in the USA, working and traveling around. I worked at a summer camp, met loads of really really cool people doing sailing, because that's what I've done before. I taught that, which is really cool. It was great to have like a little break in between uni. I know some people do gap years before they start uni after school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided that I wanted to do it afterwards. I got kind of talked into it by another colleague at uni. He said, "Oh, I'm going to America. I'm going to do summer camps. It's going to be cool." And I was like, "Oh, I want to do that as well. That sounds fun." Because after so much time of working,
Just
on
working your
academic
way
stuff.
down. Yeah, exactly. Like you need that kind of break and just have a little bit of fun before you start going into it again.
Yeah, exactly. You just need a little bit of time off just to reevaluate what you want to do, and just it expands you. Traveling and stuff, it really opens your eyes to things, And it was only America. I mean, America is somewhat similar to the UK in terms of like values and stuff like this. So it wasn't too different, and also the language is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed like the logical one to go to for the first sort of trip abroad. I mean, I hadn't even been on a flight before I went to summer camp. That's I'd never really done that. So that was a new experience as well. I mean, I'm getting there, I'm on the airplane, and then the people next to me are going, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never flown before." And they're like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Don't worry. They got. It's not going to crash. They got backup systems and backup systems. It's fine."
Oh yeah, it's one of those situations where they try to reassure you by bringing up all the bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, they put you, and they put like another person who's also going to summer camp next to you, so you have something in common to talk to.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's just really bizarre, but it was good. I went there, I did that, went traveling, and then I came back, and I decided, well, what do I do now? It's like, you know, I've decided, well, I'll do some freelance work and I'll work on my portfolio, and I'll apply to game studios and see what happens. So on that time, I used my skills as a multimedia producer, and I literally applied to almost every game studio in the UK. Almost every single one. What I did is I got my CD, I got my covering letter, I got my CV, and a little jiffy bag, and I must have had like a tower of these things that I was sending out to every games company because I wanted to work in games. That's what I wanted to do, you know. But at that time, you know, the internet wasn't really a place for putting up portfolios. People generally just either, you know, email pictures to companies or send along CDs or CDs with work on them.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to bring that up too. Is like you have your portfolio on a CD. That's such a weird thing to think about right now with like ArtStation and all the other sites being so prevalent, where no one really thinks about that anymore. And even like I've been in the industry for like 6 years, right? But that wasn't a thing when I was going around. Like it's so interesting to hear these stories where you would literally go to like an application or like send off your portfolio as like a physical thing on a disc. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you know. I mean, the good thing is I had that experience with uni. I'd done all that. I had those skills, and this is, you know, this is the kind of the course. It was a multimedia course at the end of the day, and it seems weird talking about that now because it doesn't really exist anymore. It's you know, all those skills that I had for that sort of stuff, apart from the coding side of things, yeah, they're not really there anymore. So, but the good thing about my course is that it taught you. It made you into a really good producer. You know, you kind of it's a great course for sort of questioning: is what you're doing good? Is what you're doing not necessarily for games, but just in general?
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, the amount of times that on the course we gave in our work, and then the lecturers went, "That's not great. That's rubbish. Go away." And try that. And you know, it's probably something you wouldn't get now, but they were very, very, very honest about stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of trained you into sort of questioning your own work, which I think has put me in good stead since then. To sort of question my work and everything else. Maybe I do it too much to myself these days. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good skill to have, to sort of take a step back and look at actually what you're doing. So that taught me quite a lot there. Where was I? I've gone off track now. Yeah.
So you just came back from summer camp, right? And then you went back to the UK, and then you applied to like every game studio in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. So I applied that, and then you know, sent out loads of these jiffy bags and stuff with all my portfolio in, and yeah, and then I decided to get these letters back, and you know, lo and behold, there, you know, a lot of them were like, well, yeah, we've seen your portfolio. We'll keep it on file, and yeah, if we have any openings coming up, because there's no openings at the moment, we'll let you know. And it's a standard, you know, standard reply for stuff like this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was, yeah. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I've done this. I've tried to get into the industry. So now what do I do? Well, I thought, well, you know, I've got to try and go back to uni. I've got to do this masters that I said I would do after uni, because I'm trying to get my foot in the door in the industry, and I need to go back to uni. So the next thing was to go to another open day at Bournemouth. And I went to another open day, and I talked to the guy. I came there quite late. It's one of the last ones in the year for the open days. I didn't know that, so I got there, and I talked to this guy to giving information about the course and stuff like that. And I said, oh yeah, I want to apply for this one. And he says, oh, well, you can apply, but unfortunately the course is always full. It's full for this year. And I was like, oh no, not again. So the guy said, well, you can leave your details. You can, you know, leave your details. And if there's a vacancy that comes up with a course, or someone, you know, to clients doing it, then we can let you know, and we'll get you in for an interview. So I left my details and drove all the way back, and then thought, well, you know, what can I do now? Just start working, basically, start or carry on doing my portfolio and stuff like that. A few weeks later, about a month later, actually, I got a call from someone at uni saying, "Hey, we've had someone who's dropped out of the course, and we'd like you to come for an interview." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good."
Oh,
So
what? That's such a lucky opportunity.
yeah, and this was quite late, so this is like almost before the term's going to start. So I got in my car again, and I drove all the way up there, and I talked to this lecturer guy, and I showed him my work and stuff, and he was really impressed with what I had there because I've actually been working on it as well. So he was really quite happy just to give me an unconditional offer straight for the course. Like, yeah, if you want to do it, then you're in. And I was like, great, this is a course that I really wanted to do, master's course. It was probably a bit more techie than the one before, but it was good. I can start learning sort of proper game stuff and do all sorts of things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was there, I had the opportunity to go down and talk to the students in the labs, which was really cool because they are all currently working on stuff. They're showing me all of their portfolio stuff, and I remembered talking to one of the guys, and I said, he goes, "Oh, so what do you want to do after you've done this course?" Then he's like, "Well, I want to get into games." And he was like, "Oh right, oh yeah, well we've just had like Frontier along, and they've been showing us all the cool stuff they're doing." And I was thinking, "Oh yeah," it's like I don't think I actually posted my stuff to them. And
Oh
so I
no.
left. So I left there, and I went back home, and that stuck in my mind. You can see what's going. I stuck in my mind, and so uh, I left there, and it stuck in my mind. But one of the things that I had to decide upon that weekend, literally the guy just gave me that weekend, I had to decide whether I wanted to do the course or I didn't want to do the course. And so, it's probably one of the toughest decisions of my life. Not because I didn't want to do the course, but because financially the course was really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a nine grand, and then at that time, it was quite expensive, and I had no money. I literally had no money. I'd been traveling, I'd spent all my money, and the only way I was going to pay to get on that course was to go to the bank and go, I need a loan to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously I'd have to work at the same time as well, because obviously you have to pay for accommodation and rent and everything like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the bank, and they said, "Oh yeah, we can give you a loan, yeah, but you'll have to pay it back as soon as you finish the course, whether you've got a job or not."
Oh Jesus.
It's not like the original student loans in the UK where you can pay it over so many years with a bit of interest and stuff like that. You literally had to pay it back as soon as you finished, and that kind of spooked me out a bit. I was like, well, I don't really want to get into debt just to go to this course.
Mm-hmm.
So that weekend, I had to really decide what I wanted to do. Whether I want to do this course, get into debt, or I wanted to not do this course, and maybe either do something else or work and just keep trying to get in the industry. So I decided that I was going to, after a really long decision thinking about this, I wanted to defer the course for a year. What I'd do is I'd defer the course. I'd work really hard at a random job that I'd get, and I'd save up the money so I had a bit of a buffer zone when I went to uni, and yeah, and that was my goal for that. So I declined the course, and then but then that's the thing that stuck in my mind was that I'd just been there, and they mentioned, oh, Frontier Developments, they've been really cool stuff. So I thought, well, I'll send off my my last jiffy bags of my portfolio and my CD.
Yeah.
And
Your last resort.
my last thing, I thought, well, I'll send it off. What have I got to lose? I've got nothing to lose, so let's do it. And so I sent it off, not thinking, I just get another rejection back from like I have with all of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of 3 weeks later, I got a letter saying, yeah, we'd like to talk to you in person in an interview. Would you be happy to come up and talk to us? So I travelled all the way up to Cambridge, and I went for the interview, and it was good. And then I left there. It was great to talk to the director of art there, and yeah, and sort of a few days later, I got told I'd been offered a position.
Oh
So I
shit.
was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm getting into the industry that I want to do, and this is it. So after that, I left it for a while, and eventually just talked to Bournemouth about, hey, guys, I'm not going to, that deferral, I'm not going to do the course because I've been offered a job at Frontier, and that's what I'm going to do. I'd much rather be making money than going to a course where I probably learn roughly the same sort of things, maybe a bit more out there. But I can learn a lot more on the job. I can be making money, and just learning so much.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's how I got into the industry. It's like literally, I got the job mostly on one piece of work that I did, which was like an old station, realistic train station. Which is kind of what they were looking for, sort of realism and detail at that time for one of the games. And my thing was just in the right place at the right time with the right skills, and that's basically how I got a job.
Is that train station like slightly overgrown? I remember seeing it on your portfolio, I think.
Yeah, it's the same one. I still keep it there. I don't know why I keep it there.
Oh, awesome. No, that's good though. I like it. I think you re-uploaded it on ArtStation, right? Because like it's probably been around for like a long time now.
Yeah,
But it
it's
looks
definitely
really good though.
It's really low res because at that time, I was rendering things out at 800 by 600. I mean, this is this is crazy resolution nowadays. This is tiny.
Yeah.
But at the time, my computer had so much trouble just rendering this stuff. I literally had to block it up into 4 sections to get it to render with loads of GI and everything like this.
Yeah.
And then had to reassemble it back in Photoshop to put it in. So.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
The old school days of rendering.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. That's like a really good story just to how like persistence can get you into the industry, right? I think a lot of people struggle with this, like especially for a student, right? Like some students, they go through a course that is like a couple of years long, and then after that they think they get handed that ticket into the industry. But what if you're not up to the standards yet for the industry, or you've tried in all your local studios, you don't really want to move, or things like that, right? Where you just have to keep pushing even after uni or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about uni is you'll come out with everything you've done at uni, and a lot of the times people at the studios, especially back in the day when I was doing it, they'd look at a project and they just go, well, I've got no idea what it's about. I don't understand why have you done that? What was the you've got influences from your lecturers as well about what you're making, because you have to justify academically.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas there's something, if you did it by yourself, you'd want to do it your own way and things like this. So it's the strange thing is, though. I mean, I'm going back to the story. I haven't quite finished it yet, but
Oh,
sorry. The strange thing was, I got the job, so that was brilliant. I started work there, and it was great. But the strange thing was, a few years later, I actually met someone who was graduated from Bournemouth, sort of a couple of years later, and we became really good friends. And one day he sort of looked at my portfolio and said to me, "So, oh, that's train station thing you did. That was you." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the day I did that one, a long time ago." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I saw that. I've seen that already." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So, well, I saw it at a uni. They were putting it up on, sort of showing us as like examples of work to try and aim for.
Man.
Yeah, I know, this is the thing. And the strange thing is that they were putting it up and sort of highlighting it as as targets of one thing, what to the quality level you need to get up to get into the industry. And I just found it bizarre. I just found it strange that the work I showed at the open day was then used, because they knew I got a job because I told them, that they used that as part of their thing to show people how, what to do.
What to aim for, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it was really weird.
Yeah, that is so weird, because you showed that at the open day, right?
Yeah.
You didn't make that at the uni.
No.
So they just ripped your work off, basically. If you want to.
Well, I wouldn't say they ripped it off, but they I don't mind them using it, and that's fine. It's if it helps other people, then that's great. I don't mind at all. But it was just strange having that conversation with someone who
oh yeah.
ended up seeing like my work, and it was like, I mean, they're going to use that anyway. They can put it in like a presentation or something. That's fine. They could do it to anyone. It's fine. I don't really mind.
Yeah, that's true. But
But
it
yeah.
must have been a weird thing, just looking back and just talking to a person that is like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was bizarre. I mean, he was the only one who I talked to, but I obviously must have shown it to a few people.
Yeah. Well, if it's presented at like open days and all that stuff, then a lot of people must have seen it, right?
Yeah, I think it's more of the students that are on the course.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And as part of like a a lesson or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the strange thing is about that story is that I've still got the lesson. I've still got the letters to this day. I keep them as a reminder, just to never give up with your dream. So,
Yep.
and I think that's one thing that I hope people listening to this will get. Just don't give up. If you've got a dream that you want to do, and the thing, you just go for it. Either go back and study, or just try stuff, or any setback, just look at it as if like another hurdle to get over for what you want to do.
Yeah, totally agree. It's just challenges on the way, right? Like this always sounds like a bit of a cliche, but you only got this one life, so you got to make the most of it. Like if I don't want to be like, I personally don't want to be that person that is like 80 years old and then is asking, what if I did that? Like, what if I didn't go to that open day when I was trying to get into this specific uni, or like trying to get into games? Like, I don't really want to be that person. I just want to be like, look, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it 100%.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, the thing is, I think a lot of people tend to just get to a few hurdles and then will say, well, I can't do that anymore. And for me, it's not who I am. I'm always like a person who's trying to get over things and improve and do, and I see it as a challenge. I think I see most things as a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a lot of especially young people and students and things, they just should look at it more as a challenge, rather than, especially like when with feedback and stuff, if you get feedback from, say, the community or people you work with, just try and take it as a learning experience, something that you can, it's great because you're getting feedback on your stuff. And some of it you're not going to like. You think your piece of work is great, and most people will do that. But it's good to sort of take a step back, get other people's opinions, and just sort of absorb all of the things that you haven't got quite right, and just work on them.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I like from your story as well. Like when you were talking about the feedback that you got from your teachers, like it was most of the time like more direct, or like more, how would you call it, like maybe blunt even, where it's not like trying to sugarcoat anything. It was just like, look, this is not good. This just sucks, literally. Um, and this is also like an interesting topic, just because there's this massive pushback against it these days, because people don't really appreciate that blunt feedback anymore. Where
Yeah,
I think those lessons, like I got some really direct feedback from teachers, and those are often the best lessons that I got.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the same for me as well. I've gotten a lot of feedback at school, obviously, but the stuff that whether like you said, they're trying to sugarcoat it or trying to like beat around the bush, that doesn't stick with you. The stuff that sticks with you is when someone tells you outright, "Hey, this is something you still need to work on," and then at least you have that goal in your mind, that place that you need to go or whatever you need to overcome, and it gives you more of a direction, I feel like, because if someone says, "Yeah, it's all great," then you can stand there like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do now?" Right? If everything is great already, then why haven't I got a job? So I'd rather have someone tell me, "Yeah, this is good, but the lighting sucks, and you're not showing off your skills correctly in that way." Then at least that's something that I can work towards and hopefully, develop into something more, and then like make everything better and come together in a better way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is this is a great learning experience. And I think you've got to, as I say, appreciate it as a method of learning. You know, it might hurt that you get like, you know, people slating your work or whatever, but you know, take it back, take it, you know, take it on board, um, and then think, well, are they right? Is that right? You know, take a step back and say, is your work, you know, the best it can be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Because most of the times when you feel so emotionally impacted by the statements, it means that there's like some truth in there too.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
so,
thought it really, really interesting because we had some teachers that were like really in your face with like feedback. And oftentimes those are the things that I took on as lessons. And then if you combine that with like your mentality of like, don't see it as a wall, like see it as a hurdle, right? You see it as a challenge and you just take it on, take a step back, see what you can learn from it, and then grow out of it. That's what you should need to be doing.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's like progression in general. You know, you're going to get to a point like maybe you're like a specialist in say doing some hard surface work or stuff like that, but then you know, how good are you at doing organic stuff? I mean, if you did like organic, you know, type of sculpting and modeling, how good are you at that? I mean, you know, you've specialized in one area, but you know, if someone put you on that other aspect of art or another other aspect of other stuff, you know, you're basically going to go back, you know, quite a few steps down in terms of what you can achieve,
Hmm.
because you haven't necessarily got those skills or you haven't practiced that enough. So, and when you do that, you know, you're going to end up saying, you know, someone who's been doing like organic stuff for ages, and they're going to go, oh well, that you could probably do that better, or that bit can be nicer, and just learn from people who have got a lot more experience from you, and
Yeah.
that's the key. No matter, you know, however you get it, whether you get it at uni or through life lessons or through uh, you know, your colleagues at work or your mentors at work, and just absorb it and just, you know, I think also enjoy it. Just learn to enjoy that you're getting these priceless lessons, um, and stuff. Even though it, you know, it might be not what you want to hear, but they, you know, you know, they are really good methods and good lessons to learn from.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I think it's also about like just trying to detach yourself from your work. Like obviously there's always going to be a part of you in your work, so you can't do it 100%, but if you can step back, look at it objectively and be like, okay, this person is actually right because of this and this, even though they could maybe told it in a different way, like there's still going to be truth to that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is really interesting because that's basically what I tell people too, is when you get started in the industry, you just need to get over the hurdle of like all the imposter syndrome and um what is it, like all the typical stresses of like getting into the industry. um i want to I want to ask you, how was your like first bit in the industry? Like did you have any feelings like imposter syndrome, or were you like hesitant to ask questions, or were you like really open to that stuff?
Mm. That's a good one actually. So I don't think I didn't ask questions. I think I was quite good at that. I think that's the good thing about my uni course. The uni course basically taught me to ask questions, and it gave me a good base to actually ask questions with stuff. But obviously, I had never worked in the games industry till I came to Frontier. So for me, it was like quite a huge leap in terms of going from a person doing multimedia, and I'd already learned 3D before I went to uni. I was lucky to have some some experience with that. So it was that was great, and that's what helped. I wasn't coming in quite as green in terms of making 3D work. But the thing is, when I went in, because when I was at the interview, I didn't get to see any, like most games companies, you don't get to see what you would be working on, or you wouldn't get to see what you're working on. But when I sort of the first day when I came through the door, I was like, I saw all these sort of pictures and stuff up on the wall, and I was like, yeah, this is really good stuff. And I was like, whoa, I've got to step up a bit and stuff like this. So, so yeah, I mean, you get that, and this is the thing, is that you're put into an environment where you've got people who have been working on it for years, and they have an amazing eye for detail, and an amazing eye for making things right, and getting art and scale and size right, and all this stuff. And there's an aspect of like, how am I gonna do on this? But you see the thing is, so after like a few months and stuff, you get into the swing of stuff. You get in, you learn subconsciously from things that you haven't done before, because you're put in that environment where you've got to do it. And then you've also got people around you who've been doing this for years, and they know all the pitfalls, and they know all the problems that you're going to encounter, and they say, oh well, if you're doing that, you should try that this and stuff like that. And and at that stage, when you are a graduate, you just got to listen to them and learn from that. And so yeah, I mean, this is the imposter syndrome stuff. Is like, it's definitely there. I think I've definitely probably had it, or experienced it, or experienced that there were people here who know so much more than me, and and they, I talked to the director of art in the interview, and it was like, yeah, they're going to realize there's people here though who know really good stuff, and they're much better than you are. And I was like, yeah, I know they are. And so when I got to the company, and saw all the stuff that they were doing, I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. These guys know far more than I do, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to go through all of the problems and all the challenges just to learn this stuff. And you soon learn it. That's it.
It's so exciting. Like, just I'm trying to think back at my first day at Frontier, right? Because that's, or like the interview process, and like just getting in, or because that was my first job as well. And it's just once you go in for like your actual first working day, and you go to your desk and all that stuff, you get like a tour. Now it's probably way different back then, but there's like this really good mixture of a little bit of imposter syndrome, because it's like you said, you walk into this creative room where you have all the pictures on the wall, and like you see people doing this fucking awesome stuff, and then there's just like this raw excitement of like finally making it into the games industry. Like, this is what you've been working on for like a couple of years, and then you finally get to that point where you're surrounded by people that are doing this thing for a living. It's so awesome. I can't really. I was super nervous back then. I still remember like just sitting there and like trying, like I was reading a 3D book like in the lobby back then, still in the old Frontier building, and I was just like trying to read anything in that book, but I just couldn't read because I was so nervous. But
was this before you had this is before you had the interview, or is this once you'd had the job and you were there for your first day?
I think when it comes to like being nervous, there's no difference between the two. Like, I had those same nerves when I went to the first interview, and also when I started my first day, because like everything was new, right? I moved countries for the job as well, So like I didn't know anything or anyone. Like it was all fresh.
Yeah, for me, interviews are an interesting because I don't really get nervous for interviews. It's kind of strange because you know, you think that you get nervous for interviews, but I just tend to just think, well, I've got nothing to lose,
Yeah.
And that's my, that's my thoughts on that. So I tend not to be too nervous on interviews. It's just kind of strange. It's like I know some people get really nervous and stuff like that. I probably was more nervous about just leading up to the first day. I think definitely.
Yeah, it was the same for me actually. I wasn't as nervous for my interview as I was for the first day. Just like meeting everyone, and because that's when it becomes real, right? Like you said before, you kind of have nothing to lose. I mean, it's not like you have anything to lose on your first day, but it just feels like it because you're introduced to all these new people. You're settling in, and yeah, it can be quite overwhelming because, like you said, Tim, it's amazing coming into this room with all these creative people, and like they're gonna have so much knowledge that you can learn from. But at the same time, there's still this I don't know, at least for me, there's still this anxiety, you don't want to mess up meeting your colleagues or something like that, and because it can be intimidating, all this knowledge, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my experience was, nothing but warmth and helpfulness when I got in for the first day, or for the first few weeks. It was like, people at Frontier couldn't have been more helpful at that
Yeah.
time, and that's really nice. It's something that you weren't sort of left on your own. You were guided by people who know lots more than you, and you weren't expected to sort of to be excellent from day one.
Yep.
They understand that you're trying to learn, and they understand that it's a big thing to get your head around. You've got lots to learn in a very short space of time, and people understand that because the thing is they've done it themselves. They have had their first day. They know what it's like. So yeah, I'd say to people that if you've got a job, you've got your first job now, I think just try and enjoy your first day. Don't worry too much about um, feeling
How
that
you're
you're
gonna
not
do
good
and
enough.
all that stuff. Yeah.
You've got to progressively
Yeah.
work on that sort of stuff.
And yeah, it's been my experience as well. Like every time I started in a new studio or with new people, it's been, like you said, nothing but just like welcoming people. And yeah, I mean, of course some people are going to be busy or whatever, but most people are always going to be super helpful, and like they'll want to help you when they see you struggling. They'll come over and say, hey, have you worked with this software before? Do you know this and this and this? And yeah, most because like you said, they've all been in those in the same position before, and they know how you feel, and they want to help you usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Like especially, I still remember like the first weeks at Frontier where, um, I was trying to get through work, right, but without asking too many questions because I wasn't really. I was always this quiet working kid in the back. Like I didn't really like to ask questions to people, but once I got over that hurdle, it just expanded like my knowledge like tremendously because people were showing me tricks that I didn't even know of, and it's also just like you said, Paul, the warmth of the welcoming, and like it's yeah, it's tricky to say, but I can't imagine like a better welcoming than at Frontier. Like it's so nice. It was such a nice experience. Like being invited to the pub on Friday for like your first week as well. It's little stuff like that that really makes like a huge difference. Like people going out of their way to help you.
Hmm.
It's so nice. What if I may ask, like what was the size back then of Frontier when you went into the company? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined, uh, I think there was 100 people. There was
Oh,
100
okay.
people in the
Yeah.
studio, and we had, so yeah, I mean, it's at least 500 now. So in that time, it's expanded massively. Yeah, it's a growing company. It's a growing company, and it's
Yeah.
you know
I was expecting less because when I joined, what is it now, roughly 5-6 years ago, I think the company back then was like 150, 200 people, maybe, if I remember correct. But then, yeah, it's they've been expanding like massively, like you mentioned. It's awesome to see a company grow like that.
It is.
And
It's
I
really
think, yeah, and I think it's also like seeing a company grow while retaining that feeling that we just talked about, like the warmth and the hospitality and like people just talking to each other. And I think Frontier is doing a really good job at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so interesting.
Um,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I just wanted to go back quickly to your story about getting into the industry. It's because it's funny because I kind of saw myself a little bit in that because I had a similar kind of experience. I've talked about it before. I'm just going to recap it quickly for you, Paul. That I was already at uni, but I wasn't happy, and I applied to some studios because a teacher told me, you're pretty much ready to go into the industry now, and I had to make the decision because there was like a deadline until I had to quit school. Otherwise, I would have to pay for the last semester. And I was waiting to hear back from all the studios, and I kept getting. I mean, I didn't. I only applied to like 7 studios or something, so I got a couple rejections. Um, and then I finally decided, hey, even if I don't get any jobs, I'm still going to quit school because I'm not happy here. And on the day that I went and quit school, later that day, I got an email that I had gotten the job at Elite 3D in Spain. And
That's brilliant.
yeah, it was it was crazy, but it sounded like when you said it was like the most difficult choice of your life. That's exactly how I felt, right? Because if you quit school, or in your case, if you don't even start school, then you can be in this kind of void, and you have to work on your own, and yeah, somehow get your foot in the door. And yeah, it was the same for me. I felt I had a really hard time deciding what to do, but it must have been even scarier for you because in my case, there was already so much out there, right? Like if I wouldn't have gotten the job, I would have just done a couple mentorships or like taken some kind of online course. But I guess when like 14 years ago, that wasn't that big of a thing, right? Was there even something like a mentorship or some kind of online learning program for that?
No, there wasn't really any. I mean, the thing that you learned from, we had the odd occasional sort of video tutorial and stuff, but there weren't anything like YouTube or that then. There was nothing there, nothing you could find out information from. So you literally were just learning from books. You had big sort of books, big sort of get into 3D books and all this stuff, and you literally just went page by page and just learned the software, and so yeah, you had to you can just be like taught or audio, have an audio kind of lesson on it. You literally had to sort of try it out and then do stuff, and then as you got familiar with it, then obviously you try out other things and learn
Yeah.
stuff that way. But yeah, there was nothing like that at all.
I mean, that just makes me think about how lucky I was and how lucky all the people are that are trying to get into the industry now, right? Because I mean, there's so much out there. There's, I mean, so many people in the industry are doing mentorships. There's a lot of tutorials out there. There's stuff like the what is it called, the master classes, all that kind of stuff. There's like if you want to get into the industry, you can really pick and choose instead of having to look for. I mean, I've never even picked up a 3D book, right? Like that's not even a thing anymore. It's yeah, it's just amazing how that part of the community has grown over the last years.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The industry, keeps on going. It keeps on, the way to teach people changes all the time. And the thing is, you can get lots of information from all over the place now. If you've even got like sort of ArtStation Learning and all this stuff, and it's almost everything that you do, there's some sort of training stuff with it. which is great, and it's really affordable as well. It's not necessarily I remember going to like sort of bookstore and just looking at all these Learn 3D books on the shelves and going, oh, that book, yeah, I can get that book. That's like £30. That one's £40. And now you can go on to some of these things and get a tutorial for a few pounds or a few euros or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and also you got the aspect of it just being free on YouTube. So yeah, there's a lot more opportunities to learn nowadays than there was before. But there's kind of a flip side to that as well, because whereas before, when I and other people were trying to get into the industry, you maybe had a lot less competition trying to get in. So there was that, and obviously you still had to do really good work because there was a very small margin of being successful, as I found out. But in the same ways, you've got less at that point. You had less people doing like courses to do with games. You had less people working on purely games and creative courses. You had animation and you had all sorts of stuff like that, but there was a lot less of them. So it was a lot harder to sort of pick up in your spare time, or as a you got loads of like back then you had to. You don't have anything like Blender or anything like that. All this free software that you can literally jump in, download it from the internet. Obviously, things did exist then, but they were, much less accessible, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that there's another downside to that, where people get confused about what to learn now, because like there's so many resources, there's so much to learn out there now that a lot of people just get confused about like where to start. Like what if I want to become an environment artist in the games industry? Like where do I start? Like what do I learn? Like for a lot of people that don't know anything about the world itself, or like the game industry, right? Like it's super tricky to find like an accurate step-by-step guide of how to follow these things. Whereas before there was still that, right? Because you can still pick up like different kinds of books, but like just the sheer amount of those books wasn't as big.
Yeah, that's right. You got content. You got everyone doing content creation, from all walks of life. Some people are sort of amateur 3D artists, and you've got other people who are doing this for their living, and they're just making content and tutorials, which are gold dust, especially for people who are trying to get in. You got to learn. You got to learn from the best, and you got to learn from people who know so much more. And and that's the thing. And that's how you're going to improve. You're going to improve by putting yourself in the deep end and trying something that you've never done before. And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get to where you want to be, but that's the thing, the next time you do it, you're going to be better. And then the time after that, you're going to get better. And this whole process, really, whole learning process.
100%. And it's also, it doesn't stop anywhere. Like you're in the industry for like 14 years right now, but you're still doing stuff on the side too, where I saw your recent project that you shared on LinkedIn like a while back. You're still like exploring new things or like doing stuff on the side too.
Yeah, I am. And this is the thing. For me, it's like I want to create my own stuff. I want to try and push myself. Or every time I do stuff in my portfolio, I'm trying to push myself on what I've done before. That's why I tend to just do silly things like try the hardest thing I could think of to do. Or like I did like a Cambodia scene ages ago, and I literally like just sculpted every single thing in ZBrush.
Everything unique.
Everything unique, which if you were making a proper game, that wouldn't be the process. But this is my portfolio scene. This was I wanted to push myself to get that detail and challenge myself that I could actually make something really cool and people go wow. Because that's the thing, you've got to make things that people just not just go wow out, and they see it like, oh, that's amazing. There's so much detail there, and that's that's just right. And that's I guess I'm a bit of a perfectionist in a way, which is can be a good thing, and could also be a very bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, generally when I'm at work and stuff, there's a certain point where you just got to go, that's all we can do. That's good enough.
No.
You know, we're still always trying to make the best that we can with everything, but
Yeah.
you know, in your own personal work though, you can do that. You can spend time making things accurate and as you as good as you want it to be, really.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about the 3D corridor scene that I did recently was that I wanted to challenge myself in Unreal, because I'd never used Unreal properly before. And you know, first of all, I was just going to do like a few kind of images that I can put into my portfolio, and you know, also doing like substance paint and stuff. I didn't really get that much time to do that at work,
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to learn that. It's the same thing with ZBrush. When I did some ZBrush sculpting for the Cambodia scene that I did, I mean, I did that basically to learn ZBrush. I didn't really, you know, I didn't really have an end goal. It was more of like, I'm going to do it because I want to learn ZBrush, because I don't necessarily get the opportunity day in, day out to use that.
Mm-hmm.
It's to improve my skills. So I'm always looking to improve my skills in my own time. And that's the way I've always been, and I know that other people are like that as well. You know.
Yeah, and I think you have to be like that, right? In the games industry, everything keeps evolving and changing, and if you're, I don't know, if you have that kind of attitude where you're like, I don't want to learn anything new, I know what I'm doing, then you're gonna get left behind, right? Because no one's texturing in Photoshop anymore. Everyone's using Substance now, and it's just because there is like the games are evolving, and that's why the the software has to as well, and that's why the people will do as well, right? Like, even if you have been in the industry for 14 years, there's still new stuff coming out all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also something that I wanted to ask a question about, actually. It's like, when you got started, like, what was the pipeline like?
Oh well, the pipeline was a lot more steps than there was now. You didn't have anything like the Substance and all this stuff to do with the normal mapping and
Mm-hmm.
baking stuff. You know, you had to literally do that in the software in 3D Max or whatever. You know, I mean, luckily there was a process when I joined that, you know, a lot of things were documented and stuff like this, so you could go through stuff. But you know, when we were still you know, creating textures in Photoshop and and things like that. I mean, as I say, normal maps were the new thing when I joined. Bump maps had been replaced with new technology that was much better, and so that was a big experience for some people. I mean, there were some people who decided that, you know, that was it. I prefer doing the old way, and so I'm not gonna, you know, they kind of left the industry when these things come along,
Yeah.
because it's a lot more steps and it's a lot more things to do. Now, the great thing is nowadays is that you've got so much software that can automate all of this stuff that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have before. I mean, you can still there's a traditional way of doing stuff, but you know, sort of PBR stuff and all that. It's all lovely in this lovely program, and you know, there was quite an interesting transition when you're still working in, say, Photoshop and trying to make PBR content, and that was a tricky time, especially with the transition from going from traditional Photoshop works to the new PBR workflows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really interesting time, because that's the time when I was in like my second year of uni as well. So we actually had a course where we still had to texture. I think it was a door. Like, it wasn't really anything elaborate, but it was all set up in Photoshop. So you would set up like the different layers, like the base color, the specular, and all that stuff, just as layers in Photoshop, and then just make use of the filters, or like start painting manually, like all these maps, and then export them individually. Like, it was a really manual process. And then that just completely changed with like PBR coming in. So was there anything, because you mentioned normal maps, right? And then also PBR. Was there any other stuff that like drastically changed the pipeline during those years?
Um, I think those are the main main things, obviously, sort of screen space, ambient occlusion. That was another thing that came in, but they didn't necessarily need to do anything with that. But that was obviously a big thing that improved the look of things.
Yeah. That's more something on like the engine render side of things, where it's not like purely up to the artist. Like, for example, now we have ray tracing. That's up and coming. But yeah, that doesn't mean that we have to alter things differently. But it's just so interesting, like just hearing you talk about that, because it's like a peak in history almost. Like it's stupid to say because it's only been like 14 years. Like it is a long time, but it's also not, right?
That's it. I
So
mean, the industry is gonna evolve all the time. It's gonna change, and techniques are gonna change, and you just got to embrace them. And this is the thing, is that you've got to, like we've already just talked about, is that technology changes so fast, and workflows change fairly regularly. And as an artist, that's what you have to do. You have to just get used to things changing, get used to things evolving.
yeah, 100%. Because we also made the jump from like UDK to Unreal Engine during our course uni. It was like completely different thing. It was more streamlined for artists and all that stuff. But that was like literally happening to everyone in the industry too. It was like the switch to PBR, and like our teachers and all the students, they just had to figure it out on the fly. Like there was no prepared course material or anything like that. It was just like, well, this is new, the industry is moving towards it, so we'll have to just adapt. And I think that's also where just your attitude of like seeing it as challenges comes in, right? Because you're always looking at these changes as like just the next challenge. Like just come on, bring it on. I can adapt to it. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'd say about old skills and new skills is that I think that's one thing that we have noticed before, is that a lot of when the sort of new graduates come in, is that they have a lot of skills that are very tailored to all the latest software, all the latest tech and stuff like that. And they know their stuff. I mean, they know quite a lot of things. But what they tend to miss is the traditional skills of some artists are better than others, absolutely. But there are some artists where they probably should concentrate more on, say, looking at composition and framing stuff, and getting some really nice renders out as well. I mean, a lot of the stuff these days is very real time, which is fabulous, but you also need to pay attention to things like that, and silhouettes and all this stuff. It's still really important to have that basic knowledge when you come to do your art, because at the end of the day, it has to be presented, and it has to be appealing to the eye and all this stuff. So it's important.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that's also something that we oftentimes bring up, is just artist fundamentals are always going to be relevant. Like you said, the composition, like silhouettes, how to build up like good silhouettes for models, like that stuff is all going to remain relevant, like no matter what the pipeline changes to.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? It's half a technical job and half an artistic creative thing, and that art side is not going to change, color theory is not going to change, but the technical side will, right? So you need to be up to date with that, but you still, like you said, you need to have the fundamentals and know about composition. Yeah, having just like a good, having good colors and good contrast and all that stuff. But you also have to know how to achieve that with the current tools. It's keeping that balance that is going to help you, I would say, yeah, be a better artist in general.
Yeah, I think it's essential skills that you also really need to pay attention, especially if you like learning stuff. Take some time, not just to learn the software or things like that. Take some time to understand the fundamentals first, because they will put you in good stead for the rest of your time in the industry. I think the more you practice, the better you'll get at them.
Like if you were to give like some pointers to people moving into the industry? Like, what would you say to focus a little bit more on?
That's a good question. I think definitely if you're going for like environment work, then make sure that you're looking at things like scale, in terms of how large something is compared to something else, because that's one thing that I see from time to time, is that these people come in and they've got great skills to make this stuff, but if someone comes in and works on a piece and they start off and then they haven't quite got the scale right or the details right on, say, a model or something like that, it's you've got to make sure that at the beginning you're getting these things correct, because if you carry on down the process, you're going to start off with a wrong model, and then you're going to make a wrong scaled model, and you're going to make a wrong textured model, and you're going to make a wrong, everything's going to be the wrong size. So I think that is something that definitely the people should look at, in terms of, again, taking a step back and looking at what kind of scales these objects are, and also what kind of the appearances. And if something doesn't look like the reference that you're making, then it's better to get that right first before you start going to the end of the process, and then you end up having a model that's fundamentally wrong. No matter how good your texturing is, and no matter how good your normal maps are, or stuff like that, or your PBR work, if it's a wrong model, it's going to be wrong at the end. If it's wrong at the start, it's going to be wrong at the end. So get the start right. Make sure you get those things right. And that the thing is, though, that is not everyone will have that skill, and that's something as part of the learning process that you're going to learn when you do join a studio. Like maybe throughout uni, nobody's really talked to you and told you about these things are wrong in your, the lecturers are going to go, well, that looks great, it's great, but have the lecturers thought about the scale of these items? Are they right? Is it the right use of things in the right places, and stuff like that? That's kind of a fundamental thing that not everyone gets wrong, but there's sometimes where people have started off in the industry, and that's something that they need to learn. And it's generally, that is kind of, it will be one of the when we are doing, like, say, reviews or PDCs and stuff, that's generally things that we will raise at the beginning, because it's a fundamental thing that artists need to understand. So that's definitely a thing that we talk to them about.
Yeah, I remember talking about scale. I had I made a scene a long time ago that I think when I applied to my first job, so like 2.5 years ago, and I just I couldn't figure out why it looked strange, and because I made a block out beforehand, and all my props and everything was the correct size, it was all good. It still looked like the ceiling was super low, and then I realized, or someone told me, I don't remember, that my brick texture that I had on a wall was too large, so the bricks were like twice the size that they would usually be, and that just made the whole scene feel wrong. You couldn't really put your finger on it, but it just looked strange. And that's like you said, right? When you don't have the base right, the start right, then it's gonna carry on all the way through, and it's gonna make your whole thing look weird, even though maybe the textures are right on spot and they're great. But if the size is wrong, it's not gonna look right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something, just while we've got you here, we as a lead artist, I wanna talk about how what you do on a daily basis. I know you can't go into details, obviously, but how does that change from going from like a regular or a senior artist towards a lead role? Because you've talked about your school being very focused on, or a very, like, a good base for production as well. Like, because as a lead artist, are you more of a producer that just knows what, like knows the details of 3D, or do you still work on 3D in your daily tasks?
I still work on 3D things. I mean, I said producer, but I think the main thing it gives you a good eye for stuff.
Yeah.
I think it gives you a good way of questioning things and not necessarily going with it. You know, that's kind of what I mean by a producer in terms of, you know, you can look at stuff and then you kind of evaluate if it's correct. That's kind of what I meant initially with that. But you know, going from go from senior to lead, it's obviously a big step. There's lots of things that you didn't do before, but now you have to do. And some of the aspects of that is you may have less art that you will be doing. Now, there's a balance for that. But I think one of the things that is a fundamental change is that you have the team to look after now. Whereas before, you know, you would be a senior, you'd be working on your own stuff. You may have your own smaller little team, as maybe you're working as a sub lead or something, and you know, you're still talking to different areas of development. But now you have a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily be doing before as a senior. You know, sort of more meetings, more sort of checking things, more sorts of making sure things are done, and sort of looking more down the track than you would previously do. Also talking much more with, say, the art directors and people like that. That's kind of a big step up in terms of things.
So it's less and less about your own output, but more and more about the team's output, and yeah, if we want to generalize it like that, I think that might be a correct way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, it is. The lead role is more, you know, more of a team type role. You know, I think the thing is, you've got to look at like things like overall quality, you know, and working with the art directors to make sure that their vision and the game's vision is realized. So that might mean sort of having one-to-ones with people in the team, saying, "Hey, you've got this. You've added in this stuff, but you know, how about this? Maybe we should tweak this or change that." And then obviously you're feeding back information from the art directors and what they want. Also things like just sort of checking things in game, making sure that, you know, you're loading up the game and checking that things are right. Again, going back to things like scale of things and stuff like that, you know, making sure that things are right there.
Yeah. What was your biggest learning from going to senior to lead? Like, what was that one thing where you were like, oh, okay, I wasn't paying attention to this, or something like that?
I think the first thing that I realized was that you've got a lot more things to juggle. You've got a lot more aspects of the game that you didn't necessarily do before. You know, like a normal artist role, you'll have, you know, you'll be working on your own thing, and you know, and you have to talk with the team and stuff. But that's really sort of how far as it goes. But where if you're going from like a normal artist to a senior, this isn't necessarily correct for every single studio. I'm just saying this from my experience, is that you have, you know, a senior role is probably more that you're starting to connect the dots between departments. You know, whereas before you wouldn't be expected to say, let's talk to design and make sure this functions right, or this. You'll basically be doing your art job. Whereas seniors, you'll be like, okay, let's, you know, let's go and talk to the design. Let's see how we can make this kind of gameplay loop work and stuff like this. What do I need? Do I need this bit or do I need that bit? And then it's, you know, that's kind of a role of the seniors, is to be a little bit more outward looking in terms of your scope, not necessarily the whole entire game, but you know, to make sure that your aspect is being realized in that, and to take some strain off of the lead artist and also the art director, and to try and, you know, realize that on your own merits. Also, just, you know, to make sure that your work is really good. Make sure that you're still producing some really good work.
Mhm.
But then going from senior, it's more of like up to a lead. It's more of making sure that you're actually looking at the game and you're assessing the game, and making sure things are correct going into the game, making sure that if there's any problems that we get them addressed and stuff, and also making sure that the milestones are delivered in good time, or if there's any problems like that might actually stop you from delivering, say, a milestone, that's voiced to production and things like this. I think also one of the big things for me is to get things documented as well. There's lots of times where you're making a lot of all this content and you've got a pipeline of how to do it. You've got to make sure that those pipeline bits are documented. It's really important to have a documentation process. I know a lot of people don't really like doing documentation, but understandably, but it is a fundamental thing, because if you're looking at, you're working in a studio environment where you've got people in a team, and for example, if you had to shift around the team, or you had some other elements, like some unforeseen circumstances or something like that, and suddenly all of that knowledge with that person has gone, then you have to have all this stuff documented, because then someone can take up the reins and they can carry on with stuff. And so that for me is definitely a really important thing to have.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people just underestimate documentation, and also why most companies have their own internal wiki where they can look up anything that they want to do, right? Because you wanna allow people that are coming onto the project, just, or like you said, like even rotating teams, just be able to have a look at that documentation and be caught up with everyone else as quick as possible.
Exactly. You got if you say you get a new hire or something like that, then you've either got to spend time. You have to spend time teaching people anyway. But if you've got a lot of stuff documented already about the workflow, then you can say, hey, have a look at this, and and they can go through the process, step-by-step process, if it's really clear, and in no time they would be up to speed with how things work or how things are done. Actually, one of the main things also with the difference between kind of the seniors and the lead is basically assigning jobs and tasks out to people as well. It's kind of your responsibility to know what people are good at in the team and to distribute tasks so that they can get things done, and also that everything within that time frame that we've got is then it's kind of working the best that it can to get the milestones done.
Yeah,
lots
exactly.
of different things.
Yeah, you're basically the connective tissue between like a lot of different disciplines and aspects of the game. What would, let me see, let me see how I can phrase it in a good way. But like looking at percentages, like how big of a percentage on like your average day would still be spent on like the actual creation part versus like the management and talking and meetings and all that stuff?
It does vary. I've got to say it does vary. I mean, some days you have less things to think about than others, but generally every day you want to catch up with your team, and it also depends how big your team is. So like a small team might set you back, say, sort of an hour and a half of talking to people, but then say a big team, you might spend most of the morning just catching up with people and going to meetings and stuff like this, and then relaying that to the team. So yeah, it does take up quite a bit of your time. But then once you've got everyone working as you'd like and things are running smoothly, then you've got time to work on other things. You've got time to talk to other teams and to do all of your own work as well. Yeah, so it does vary. But
Yeah,
generally,
it's always tricky to say, right? Because there's different stages of development as well, where like the requirements shift as well. So it's a bit of a tricky question, but that's good to know that there's still time to do your own production, because obviously there's like the additional factor of different studios have different workflows, right? So a lead, this doesn't only apply to a lead, but like also to like a junior, senior, whatever. Every studio is gonna tackle it a little bit differently. So there might be lead positions at another studio where you maybe do 10% of like asset production. So it's good to hear that you do still have like quite a bit of time for that too.
yeah. I mean, that's quite a lot of the time in the past where I've had some time out where I literally look at the game and then I would write kind of annotations about things that I'm seeing. You know, things that aren't necessarily that right. I mean, it kind of does lead in a little bit into art direction in a way, but then I work quite closely with the art directors anyway. So I mean, that's something that I definitely want to aspire to in the future, because I actually really get you know I really get a lot of satisfaction about doing art direction things. I've done a little
Yeah,
bit in the past, but you know, something I
yeah.
want to do
I
more of.
think that's like a good lead up role, right? Because it's like you said, you're already doing like the annotations and the feedback anyway. It's more, what is it? It's more like from my perspective, it's more like down to earth or like more technical things instead of like the grand scheme of the game, where that is more like art direction.
Mm.
So I think it's really nice that you want to go for that. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to pursue. That's for sure. I think that also one of the other things about a lead role is that it is a big team aspect, and you've got to make sure that your team's working well, and also that that people are happy in the team as well.
Yep.
There's nothing worse than having a team that's unhappy and things like this. So um, it's what you got to talk to people, and you got to find out what they want. In the team, you got to not just think of these uh, people as someone who's just working in a team. They're human beings, and they've got their own aspirations as well, and that's something that you've got to understand. They're coming to work every day. What do they want to do? What do you know? How do they see themselves in 3 or 4 years? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it all ties back into sort of reviews and stuff, and development conversations. But that's something that you definitely have to look at. I mean, the thing is that you've worked with a lot of these people anyway, maybe in your team already, so you kind of know what they want to do and what they get a kick out of and stuff like this. So I think the job is just to listen to people, make sure that you're listening to people, and that they're getting satisfaction out of the job.
Yeah, and also figuring out how you can support them in their growth, which is probably one of the, well, in my opinion, like the most interesting aspects of like leading a team, right? Where you can help other people grow as well. It's not about you as a person anymore. It's about like the entire team and like how we can all grow together. Is
Yeah, absolutely.
really
That's
nice.
that's it.
So we're finally getting back to our initial point where we started talking about COVID. Uh, so it's been an hour and 20 minutes, but we're finally getting back to our first point. Like how did leadership, like when we're talking about like being a lead, like how did that change with working from home?
Well, I mean, it's still the same principles. But the thing is that whereas before you'd be in an office and you'd sit next to your team, and it'd be quite easy just to go up to people and have a discussion with them and talk about things that they're working on. That's obviously a big thing. It's like you don't have that instant feedback to them. And obviously you can call them, but then it's not like just going next to someone and looking at their screen, or they call you over and say, "Hey, I've done this. What do you think of this?" So that's definitely something that had to change in terms of being a bit more patient with stuff, because obviously you've got connected via an internet and a webcam and screen sharing. So you've got problems there where you may not have the audio right, or you may have a lot of compression issues with stuff. So seeing things is a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the
I
day,
think that's the thing I really miss is just having those little conversations like you mentioned. Like just being able to talk to people about like smaller things, because now it's way more structured than it was before, right? Like you probably have meetings set up for like syncing with your team or whatever now, instead of it, like you said, being more like a spur of the moment, like looking at someone's screen and like, oh shit, that looks awesome. Like,
yeah,
what are you doing here?
yeah,
Like,
there's a lot more of that. There's a lot more things where you've got to organize a meeting just to talk about stuff, whereas before you just talk to the person next to you. It's stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else? What else has changed? Well, I mean, it was quite sudden. I mean, the whole thing of going from being in the office to working from home was really quite a quick process. And I've got to say that Frontier have done an amazing job in terms of getting us from the office to working from home. They've been so supportive for everyone, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing having an employer that does that and understands and regularly keeps everybody informed. It's just really nice. So I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys are in the same position with your with your employer, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say that
Yeah, it's pretty crazy like how quick all that stuff went, because when was it? Like I've gone back to the office like 2 or 3 days, but for the rest of it, I've been at home since, what is it, like end February, begin March, something like that. I can't remember,
Yeah.
even so long
Yeah, I
ago.
think March.
yeah, I mean, I've been there for about that same time as well.
And I mean, we also have to say, right, that in our industry we have the opportunity and we're so fortunate that it's possible to work from home. I mean, of course, there's some, especially like if you work with a team, then you're gonna have some more challenging things to do than you had, like you said, with just going over to someone's PC and talking to them. But overall, it's probably one of the best jobs to have in this time, because you can pretty much work remotely and almost have the same productivity, right? At least on an individual basis. Maybe the whole thing about the team might be a little bit harder to do, but
Mm-hmm.
as long as you've got like a good internet connection, or however you connect to your PC at work or whatever it might be, it's you can still work quite efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that that we can, as you say, we can still work and we can still do roughly the same job that we've been doing, if in a different location and under different circumstances. I think that there's also in issues where you've got to take some time out as well, because there's always a tricky part of where you you get up, you switch on your computer, and then you work for the day, and then there's always a tricky thing of, well, when do I stop? Do I carry on into the evening, or obviously we have flexi time at work and things like this, so you can start a bit later, but we also have some core hours and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important to not to take those time out as well, and not to burn yourself out in terms of work. Go for a walk at lunch, get out in the sunshine, and do some stuff. It's tricky. I mean, you're in the same house. You're in the same house, whereas before you'd not be going to work, and the environment would change, and then you're coming back at the end of the day. Whereas now it's all in the same place. So there's that repetition that isn't normal, unless you obviously work from home before. But for a lot of us, it's a change, and it's different, and it causes possibly some let's say some mental aspects of that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's gonna impact like a lot of people in different ways, right? Where some people are a little bit more comfortable, like myself included. Well, obviously, I miss going out for traveling and all that stuff. But other than that, I'm quite comfortable at home. But there are people that are in less fortunate situations, or they used to go partying like every weekend, and they have that cut off. So how do you manage that as like a lead? Like when um I don't even know what to ask you, but like how do you manage like like
The
your
morale
team's
of the team.
yeah, the morale of the team, like their mental health, like how do you go about that?
Well, I think again, it's just listening to people, just having a chat with people, and just finding out how they are, finding out if there's got any problems, not necessarily at work as well, but also with their own life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, as I say, there's a person behind that, and aspects of some people may have families, they may have lots of other things going on at once that they didn't necessarily have before. So yeah, it's about talking to them, finding out, and also trying to help out people as much as you can, so they can be happy with what they're doing, and also if you can help them out in terms of just making their lives a bit easier. Maybe for instance they've been sat at a computer for days, they're trying to do stuff. Just give them some time to go for a walk, or just have a bit of chill time. So then maybe they can sort out the things that are blocking them from doing their work.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that's the thing. Just listen to the person, listen to your team.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I think the thing that you brought up with walks is we've gone through periods where in the beginning of working from home we did like daily walks, and then it would like die down for like a month or whatever, and then we'd be like, okay, let's pick it back up. And I think it's such a good way to just um at least have a little bit of exercise, or at least just think about something else than just sitting behind your PC or behind your TV playing games, whatever. Just have something else going on. Like
Mm.
how do you deal with it yourself? Like do you have like a workout schedule or anything like that?
Well, I used to do I went to the gym quite regularly, and obviously that's not happening at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally tend to like go running or do some weights and stuff like this in my own time. Just because I think the body is important to the mind.
Yep.
I think there's a there's loads of studies that exercise helps your mental health and stuff like this. So for me, I've always done exercise. I've always done that because I always find that I feel better after doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and yeah, I do that, and obviously I talk to my friends, and we do play some games together and things like that, just to keep up that kind of sort of
Normality,
normality, yeah,
right?
normality, stuff like that. So
It's kind of
so
weird to
yeah,
call it like the new normal, but I mean, we're all trying to do our best.
yeah.
So are you playing any games recently?
Um, well, I've been playing. Me and my friend are really big RTS fans. I'm a massive RTS fan, so I love playing RTS games. So we've been we've been going back and just playing a few skirmishes on Dawn of War 2 and stuff like this.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I love those sort of games. I'm a Dune 2 Command and Conquer child, and
Yeah.
you know all
Supreme
the older.
Commander by any chance?
Oh no, I think I skipped that one. I didn't. I didn't.
Oh
I,
man.
and the reason why it was Total Annihilation. Yes, absolutely. Total Annihilation is brilliant. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think at that point my PC just couldn't handle it, so I literally just couldn't play it. Um, but I grew up with like the Amiga and all these games, and and those are the ones I actually have the most fond memories of. I mean, I talked to uh, the art director here, and we have a kind of a very similar view of old classic games, and we reminisce about stuff like that. So
Oh, that's awesome.
but yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've got loads of games that I still haven't played. I've got them in my list, but I haven't got around to playing them. Um, you know,
maybe Yeah, I don't have that big of a Steam list, but I have people that well, I know people that just have like a massive amount of games in their
Yeah.
Steam list, just waiting to be played, but probably never get to it. I think that's all that we kind of had for this one. I do have some like one question to end it on, and that is, you hinted at it a little bit, like you're experimenting with some personal work, right? But like, what is next for you? What is the next challenge for you?
In terms of personal stuff.
It can be anything,
Are we
personal stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'm probably gonna. I've been trying to do well. The thing is, I've broken my finger at the moment, so doing normal tasks is quite tricky. But you know, I can still work and I can still do things. But the next thing for me was I wanted to sort of do more in terms of concept art. You know, I have I'm quite a fan of concept art, and it's something I definitely enjoyed doing. I've always done sort of drawings and stuff, and I want to get better at that. And then potentially do some other things, maybe even getting into a bit of Blender in my own time. I've done a bit in the past, doing sort of things with that. I really, you know, see what the Blender community are doing. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I've been using Blender for like a while now. It's so good.
Yeah, so it's definitely something I want to probably look back on. The only tricky thing with that is just obviously in work we don't use that. So you know, the thing I've always found is I get to a point where I'm say working in Maya and stuff like this, and then I try and switch to Blender, and everything's different, it's all over the place, and then I go back and forth to work. So I always tend to end up, you know, working with things that we work on in work, just for familiarity and speed, because you know you're learning it and doing it every day. So I find that quite tricky in a way, but it's something that I definitely want to try. I know you can swap over the keyboard to different international keyboards and all this stuff and get plugins that will help you with that transition.
But it's still going to be different, right? There's always
Yeah,
going to be that inherent difference between programs.
absolutely, it's different. And it just depends on, you know, your kind of mentality of that. You know, what would you? I'd like to just learn something new and just try something different. But at the end of the day, you know, it's really what you feel comfortable in using. I think that's the key.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also interesting looking at it from your perspective, where say you use Blender as is without changing any of the hotkeys, and if you use it quite a lot, that it might end up like confusing the workflow that you had in Maya, because then it's like, oh, different hotkeys and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's the main aspect.
Yeah.
That was the thing I found tricky when I was trying both of them out.
Yeah, that's awesome though.
All the things are exactly the same. They're all, you know, the same processes are there and stuff. They're just in different places.
Yeah.
And you just got to learn things, how they work and how the software works, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. William, do you want to ask any more questions from your side?
I think I've got all the stuff that I wanted to ask. I've got it all out.
Hell yeah. Okay, sounds good. Oh, I appreciate you being on, Paul. Like, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. This is awesome that we can kick it off with someone with as much experience as you have.
Well, it's great being on. You know, I hope that people listening will get sort of an idea of what it's like, and also just hopefully get some ideas and sort of things to pursue a career in the gaming industry.
Yeah, just keep working at it.
Obviously, you know, I'm going to do a plug here, but you know, obviously, Frontier are there. You know, we've got some jobs and we're always hiring, so check out the website and, you know, www.frontier.co.uk/careers, and then obviously my website's there, paulworcester.co.uk. So yeah, it'd be great to
check it out, people. Check it out. And we're probably going to add those links in the description as well if you're looking for a link yourself. Okay, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Paul. Really
Yeah, thanks
appreciate
a
it.
lot.
Brilliant. It's been really good. Thanks a lot, guys. And it's great that what you guys are doing too. The podcasts are really, really helpful for graduates and people wanting to get into the industry. So congratulations with it all.
Oh,
It's going
thanks
from
so
strength
much,
to
man.
strength, man.
Thanks so much, man. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the podcast. We're happy to have you. So check out some of the links below in the description, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you did, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you're an environment artist trying to break into the industry, or just looking to grow your skills, you can find a ton more resources like weekly tips, blog posts, and more on beyondextend.com. But that's going to do it from our side. Thanks so much for joining us, and a shout out to all of our Patreon supporters who made this possible.